Hey guys, before the video gets underway, we just hit 1 million lifetime views here on the channel, and that just blew up the 1.0 and then the capital M there just absolutely blows my mind. And we're so close to 5,000 subscribers. I believe we're at 4.85 thousand. So if you are new here or you've watched a couple of these videos, please do consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to hit 5,000 before the end of the month. Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, guys, we got a bunch of Leafs rumblings, is what I'm going to call it, to go over. In the first bit of rumblings here from David Pagnotta, the fourth period here, follow up to the previous tweet, one player among others the Coyotes are very much trying to move is pending RFA Connor Garland. No contract discussions since the end of the season. Belief is the team's preference is to move him, and Toronto is listed as one of the teams that have checked in. And if we're looking at what type of player Connor Garland is, he's 25 years old. He's a passing forward. He's a playmaking forward. He's a shooting forward. He does carry the puck well in transition. He's a dynamic, young, smaller forward that does need a new contract. Keeping in mind that the Coyotes are a defensive first team, 39 points in 49 games, not too shabby from this player. Looking at the zone splits at even strength here, this is a guy who is going to need offensive zone starts, so a guy playing in the top six or in an offensive role in the middle six, I guess, maybe on a third scoring line or something like that. But again, he is dynamic and he is just 25 years old. And if we're looking at the with and without swings, especially the offense, there's a 21% swing here with him on the ice and without him. And that's where that comes up with the Coyotes being a more defensive first team and not really necessarily scoring a lot. And the same thing with their power play. It's not a positive, but it's much better with him on the ice. And when we're looking at the contract that this RFA scoring forward could maybe want, it's tough. A 2-year deal would walk him right down restricted free agency because he is already 25 years old. Anything more than a 2-year deal and you're buying UFA years, and that does cost you more. So I believe that this player could be had for pretty cheap, maybe on a 2 or 3-year deal. Anything longer than that, and you are going to have to pay for it. You know, maybe that bridge deal is in the range of anywhere between $3 and $3.5 million, and maybe anything more than that tops out at about $4.5 million for maybe a 3 or a 4-year deal on this guy. But you got to remember is that you're paying him that salary cap, that money, and you're also probably going to have to give up quite a bit to get him. And before we take a look at the armchair GM and how the money would work and how a team could look around a guy like Connor Garland and how the roster could be filled out, another rumor or another thing that's being thrown out there is the Leafs could possibly be interested in Coyotes goalie Darcy Kuemper. Last season wasn't necessarily the best for Darcy Kuemper, and he does have a pretty lengthy injury history, but the previous 3 seasons to that, especially with the Arizona Coyotes, were nothing short of just marvelous for this goaltender. One of the best in the NHL over the last 3 seasons previous to the 2021 campaign. And if you missed the video that I did here on the channel talking about backup goaltender options, I will leave that linked above the screen. But I left out Kuemper because the Leafs are kind of iffy on players with just 1-year deals. They've gotten burned with rental players, and I get a sense where they don't necessarily want rental players, right? They want some consistency. They don't want a revolving door, and that's what the goaltender position really kind of has been for the team the last 3 or 4 seasons. But as I was saying, Darcy Kuemper from the 17-18 season to the 19-20 season, just fantastic in all situations with a .924 save percentage, facing a very respectable amount of high danger shots and saving the best percentage out of any of the goalies here, and a very respectable amount of medium danger shots against per 60 and saving, again, a very respectable amount of them, and the goals saved above expectation, again, just phenomenal, those 3 seasons. But last season, the 2021 season, was really a weird year for the Coyotes. The whole team wasn't necessarily the greatest, but they still found themselves contending for a playoff spot. Kuemper was injured for about a month or so. I want to say it was 2 different times throughout the year, but he did manage to find himself in 27 games played. A .907 save percentage in all situations. The amount of high danger shots against per 60 actually dipped for him last season, and that save percentage, it was worse than Frederik Andersen's was over the last year and a half or so. And the medium danger shots against per 60, those dipped as well. So the Coyotes did a fair job at limiting the amount of higher quality shots that he did face, and the medium danger save percentage, again, nothing what it was like those 3 previous seasons, but again, not really costing his team too much more than what was expected of him. It's a hefty cap hit for a guy with a lengthy injury history coming off of a really, really down year compared to the 3 really great seasons that he had with the Coyotes. But he does make $5.5 million in real money next season. The Coyotes, having a guy like Antti Ranta, having a guy like Aiden Hill, they could really look to move on from this player. It would just make sense money-wise for them. Especially with the news that they're looking to kind of cut back to about a $65 million internal salary cap, and they've already got about $55 million committed towards next season. So moving Kuemper out could go a long way to keeping a lot of the players that they either need to re-sign or making the team a little bit more competitive for next season. If you're looking at their blue line here, $10 million in real dollars is not a whole lot to fill that out. And if you're looking at the forwards that they need to bring back, it's why a guy like Connor Garland could maybe be on the move. Obviously, I think they try to move on from a guy like Oliver Ekman-Larsson before Garland. I think they look to move on from Kuemper anyway, but I don't think that they're going to find any takers for this contract because they don't really have any draft picks to surrender or any prospects. They've spent a lot of their picks either in the Taylor Hall trade, where they included some prospects as well in, and then this year they lost their first round pick because they were fined in that scandal with the draft combine. This isn't really a team with a whole lot of assets to surrender, and not a whole ton of money either. So if you're the Leafs, you're probably looking at a package deal of Garland and Kuemper, and that probably gets the Coyotes' attention, and you maybe don't have to surrender as much for a guy like Connor Garland. As for what the Leafs would need to give up, I think Kerfoot goes back in this deal. He's a 26-year-old that is capable of playing center in a scoring role, giving you some defensive value, playing on the penalty kill, being a decent skater, a decent playmaker. He had a strong playoff series against the Montreal Canadiens, and the main thing is, for the Coyotes, he adds a $3.5 million cap hit, but $1.95 million of the $2.7 million that is owed to him this season has already been paid by the Toronto Maple Leafs, so he's only owed another $750,000 for the rest of next year. For the Coyotes, I think a player like Kerfoot just makes a lot of sense. $750,000 for a guy who can play in your middle six, give you that defensive value. When I think of Kerfoot and the type of game that the Coyotes like to play, I think they fit. I think that would be a good fit for a guy like Kerfoot. As for what else the Leafs would need to add to this deal to make it go through, I don't know, because it depends on how much the Coyotes value being able to offload Kuemper's $5.5 million in real money, his cap hit, save the money that you would be paying Connor Garland, and get a player like Kerfoot back, who's only owed $750,000 for the rest of next season. That money has more value than people want to believe, but I don't think Kerfoot alone is enough to get that deal done. If they need to add like a B minus prospect on top of it, I wouldn't be opposed to if you need to add like a smaller draft pick as well. I mean, okay, but again, that money does have a lot more value than people want to give it credit. Either way, whatever happens tomorrow, if there's a trade or not a trade, I think that the Leafs should go with 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goalie, because it allows you to protect Alex Kerfoot. And Kerfoot, between him, Justin Holl, Travis Dermott, I believe has the most trade value because, again, he's 26 years old. He can play center. He can give you some defensive value. He's a decent skater, can play on your penalty kill. He's a decent playmaker. He had 5 points in 7 playoff games, filled a huge hole for the team. He's on the up right now. He's not Justin Holl, who's been tied to Jake Muzzin for the past couple of seasons, and that's really the only defense partner that he's had success with. And Travis Dermott saw career lows across the board last year, including in ice time, and he found himself as the 7th defenseman on the team for a while after Sandin got called up. Kerfoot has the most value. It does not make sense to expose him to Seattle and lose him for nothing. If you deal him before the roster freeze, or if you keep him, then you're making Seattle pick between Justin Holl and Travis Dermott, and I think that they do select Travis Dermott at that point. A little bit more cap space. Maybe that gives you a little bit more flexibility to find a better placeholder here for your shutdown centerman. Maybe not so much someone who's just one dimensional, but can provide a little bit of offense as well as be decent defensively for you. And that is a guy like Jared McCann, who reportedly could be left exposed to the Seattle Kraken. And I don't think Pittsburgh want to lose a guy like Jared McCann for just nothing. Just embarrassingly good numbers, both offensively and defensively, for the Penguins this past season. And he filled in on the second line when Evgeny Malkin was hurt for large portions of the season. Um, I don't know how he gets left exposed if you're Pittsburgh. And if you're the Leafs, or any team really, yeah, you pick up the phone and you call Brian Burke and Ron Hextall and you try to figure something out there. At least I hope that their GM is Ron Hextall. What would he cost? I don't know, but it's a damn good player. Only has 1 year left on his deal, but at the same time, go get him. I don't care. We're trying to win. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Even if that placeholder isn't a guy like a Jared McCann, $3 million is a healthy amount of money to find you a third line center, especially in what the market should be this summer in free agency.